Hello, everybody. My name is Levi Verch, and this is my presentation on the timber industry. Before I start, I'd like to give an introduction to this project as it will be about the COVID effects on the industry. I will discuss how the majority of industries, especially the timber industry, were affected, and how the timber industry specifically affected others. Uh, COVID disrupted the normalities and eliminated any form of consistency that can be found in this industry. And this can be found in topics that will be discussed, such as unemployment of resources, massive spikes in pricing, shortage of supplies, and the disruption it had on other markets. Along with this, I will give a personal example to my connection in the industry and explain some of the environmental limitations of this industry. COVID left many production companies helpless due to restrictions and forced many to shut or slow down due to rules and regulations of workers' safety. The timber industry is very layered, and increased prices had a domino effect on other industries. It was hard to find workers for production mills and in other areas. Um, and even though increased prices of timber increased the pay, it did not relate to more workers. Increased timber prices were felt in various other industries and employment suffered. Shortages and scarcity. The cost per thousand board and feet has gone up to 406%. The price of a new single family home in many areas has increased by nearly $36,000. During the spring of 2020, there was a boom for home projects, home sales, and building of new homes. The forest sector continued to be the top employer even during the pandemic. COVID and lumber. Pre-COVID, the average 1,000 board feet of timber was $300 to $400, which meant that an average train car carried $50,000 worth of lumber. New home sales plummeted and new construction stopped. Lumber producers seized production and sold inventory. Overestimated decrease in demand was the problem of the industry. Lumber prices ended up doubling in the summer of 2020, going to $1,000 per 1,000 board feet. 3 to 4 times the prices increased on plywood as well. The spring of 2021, in the spring of 2021, demand increased even more, and this led to a $1,700 per 1,000 board feet. And this meant that it was $200,000 per train car versus the $50,000 pre-COVID-19. Eventually, prices fell once lumber suppliers began to meet demand again, but that is just as of recently. The multi-industry effects. Worldwide markets were greatly affected by the changes of timber products pricing. The typical steady markets changed to having skyrocketing prices and caused all of the following: the rapid increase of prices in the housing market, major increases in renovation costs, new commercial and residential building budgets being underallocated, and finally, manufacturing companies had to adjust their budgets and prices of their final goods to meet the increased costs. This was all due to misreading consumer desires, and this video will demonstrate some of the problems that it had.
A nationwide hike in the price of lumber is going to affect people's plans for home building projects. Erica DeCoste explains.
The pandemic has affected a lot of things: the price of gas, simple grocery items, and now lumber. Scott Fields, president and general manager of Matthew and Fields Lumber, says they're normally busy come springtime, but this year he's never seen anything like it.
We're roughly double where prices were pre-COVID about a year ago.
Fields says the demand is there. People want to get outside and start new projects, but supply is the main issue.
The mills are not able to reach full capacity for COVID reasons. Social distancing, sick people just not being able to get the people back from the layoffs a year ago.
Fields says they're slowly getting the workforce back, but it's going to take a few more months. Rick Herman, CEO of Rochester Home Builders Association, says it's important to keep this in mind if you're starting any home projects this spring. They're going to take longer and be more expensive.
A deck that might have been $3,000 in the past might cost $4,000 this year for the lumber.
It's the same for homes. A new one could cost up to $30,000 more, depending on size. There's also less inventory with pre-existing homes because of the pandemic, so Herman says more people are actually buying new anyways, a major plus for the industry.
Buyers are getting more money because the demand is so high and the inventory is so low. So there is an opportunity for things to equal out and even out.
Reporting, Erica DeCoste, News 8.
All right, Erica, thank you. A nationwide hike.
All right, so now I'll get on to the part where I will discuss some personal connections to this topic, and explain how timber is one of the most useful resources to my family and how we afforded our new property. We bought the property just before COVID-19, and as we began starting to look at doing renovations, we saw this massive spike in timber prices. Therefore, we decided to mill all our own lumber with the trees on the property, and it ended up saving us $50,000 worth of timber costs off of our personal supply. Along with this, cutting down the timber and the trees on the property increased our property value with little cost to reach this point. Extra wood that we had left over was sold for profit, and also we built a brand new dock and a giant deck due to cheap prices and easy accessibility, which we never would have been able to do if it wasn't for using our own land resources. Now I'd like to discuss some opportunity costs and a little bit of a marginal analysis to this property. Although I had a loss of wage due to quitting my job to work on the property full time, it was well worth it. We also could have sold all the timber instead of making some of these upgrades, but in the long run, that was also worth it as it gave us a lot of utility out of it. Loss of resources used to purchase the property. By this, I just mean the money that we spent and the land resources. We could have done different options, but that's no big deal. It ended up being marginally beneficial to do the way that we did. The property value increased more than wages would have provided, so this is a benefit. And the utility greatly increased for all parties. We share this property with 3 families, and we can all say it was the best decision we've ever made to buy this property. Now on to some environmental limitations. Unlike many other industries, the timber industry is highly regulated in the fact of native rights along with environmental rights. In the area that I live in specifically, there's been headliner news stories coming from an area called Fairy Creek. Fairy Creek has some of the oldest growth in the world, and it is currently being clear cutted. This is coming with a lot of protests due to native rights on the land, and it just shows how certain regions as a whole are being wiped out past the point of recovering. Old growth like this may never return if it is not stopped. Incidents like Fairy Creek lead to huge macro repercussions, as it is stopping the production of very important lumber. However, it also has macro repercussions in terms of governmental issues and who can get elected based off of who can respond to these issues to get reelected and revoted in. Here is our my reference list here. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for your time.